Now, Ben, let's welcome you to the programme and come back to the UK then. Well, what's going on in the House of Lords?
That den of thieves. Well, there's quite a lot going on there. I'm going to touch on one individual in particular, and as it relates to the topic of what I think is medical fascism, which defines our health system right now, and the revolving door between top-level government and private sector positions. The individual I'm talking about is this guy, James O'Shaughnessy. He is a British Conservative politician, the author of the 2010 Conservative Manifesto, and also author of the Lord O'Shaughnessy Review, which came out in May last year. That is a review into commercial clinical trials in the UK. This is a top-level strategy report setting direction for the whole of the UK health system. Two things to note: it's a very long report, so it's about 80 pages long, but a couple of things that really jump out at me. The first one is on page 1, is it actually holds up the COVID vaccine task force as an exemplar of how the entire health system should be run. Actually, you've jumped ahead a little bit there with the slides. Secondly, it promotes full population participation in clinical trials as some kind of desirable end state for UK healthcare. Essentially, Lord O'Shaughnessy is suggesting that every member of the population should be taking part in a clinical trial as some kind of civic duty, right? Providing ourselves as lab rats for global pharmaceutical companies to test out their experimental chemicals. That's quite a remarkable thing to consider. But unfortunately, unsurprising from this government. He also talks about a case study of a joint venture between AstraZeneca, whose COVID vaccine had to be taken off the market because it was killing people, and digital healthcare provider Huma, H-U-M-A. Now, Huma is a World Economic Forum partner. So obviously that is a deeply inappropriate type of organisation to have inside the health system. But unfortunately, again, this is unsurprising, given all of this is happening in the context of the UK government life sciences vision, which is the slide that we had a little sneak preview of a moment ago. So this is the Build Back Better document. I've spoken about this a few times over the past couple of months. This was released in 2021, signed by Boris Johnson. It has Build Back Better on the cover and in the opening statement, signed by the Prime Minister. And essentially it sets out a vision for the NHS as a low-friction, lightly regulated, digitally enabled, genetically engineered marketplace for the pharmaceutical industry and big tech firms to innovate and experiment on the UK population. So essentially, they're just doing what they said they were going to do. But this is where it gets interesting. We talked about the political side of things, but there is a market dynamic to this as well. And it relates to James O'Shaughnessy. So in 2021, 2 years before he issued his report, he founded Newmarket Strategy. This is a healthcare consulting firm focused on establishing new markets, get it, inside the NHS for global pharmaceutical and technology companies to essentially trade in our system. So you have here an individual who is not only writing policy, but also trading in the market that the policy is designed to govern. Yeah, that is a total integration of market and state. That is the dictionary definition of fascism, and Newmarket Strategy sits right at the heart of it. They are hiring very senior people into leadership positions from the NHS into Newmarket. They've been doing this very aggressively. I'm going to talk about two individuals in particular. The first one is this gentleman, the spectacularly named Blake Dark, who joined Newmarket at the start of 2023. And he was before that in the position of Chief Commercial Officer for NHS England. So he was responsible for around £20 billion a year in drug procurement. He was also on the NHS England Executive Committee. Before that, he had a 25-year career in the global pharmaceutical industry. He was a sales director at Sanofi, which is one of the big providers of pharmaceuticals into the NHS, particularly they're a big supplier of insulin. There's a little roadmap here showing some of the stuff that he did during his career. Essentially, this is just funneling lots of money to big companies and making sure that they're able to earn a decent margin on their drugs. More recently, and this is why this is particularly newsworthy, this cropped up in the past couple of weeks. So David Sloman has joined Newmarket Strategy. He joined right at the end of last year. and he is another extremely senior former NHS colleague. He was the Chief Operating Officer of NHS England. So you now have the former Chief Commercial and Chief Operating Officers of NHS England working at Newmarket Strategy. Before that, he was the Regional Director for NHS England London. So he was ultimately responsible for all NHS operations in London, from primary care to the London Ambulance Service, mental health services, absolutely everything. Yeah, before that, he was the CEO of the Royal Free London NHS Foundation Trust. He was knighted in 2017 for his services to the NHS. He's an NHS lifer, and he has now just joined Newmarket Strategy. How is this possible? I hear you ask. I don't understand how we can allow this kind of thing to go on in the system, but unfortunately, directors of NHS England are not crown servants, and appointments after leaving are not reviewed by the Advisory Committee on Business Appointments. So this is completely unregulated. Apparently, they've done nothing wrong, despite the fact that this seems to be a total contravention of medical and business ethics. Unfortunately, it just seems to be par for the course right now. Can we vote these people out? Is it just the Tories that are making these awful things happen? Unfortunately, it's not. As Debbie spoke about on Wednesday, Labour are also planning to open up the NHS to private entrepreneurs. Wes Streeting was quoted speaking about this, and Labour's policies are being directed by Peter Mandelson and ultimately by Tony Blair. And I mentioned in the final news of last year that the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change, their number one UK policy priority for 2024 is health investment, specifically radical embrace of adult vaccination, nothing sinister about that. And to help them achieve that goal, they've just employed, again, in the past couple of months, this fella, Ned Naylor. He is now a senior advisor for health reform at the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. Before that, he was the director of strategy for the COVID-19 vaccination program. So the vaccination program that we've heard so much about on UK Column and elsewhere over the past few years that has caused indescribable damage to the UK population. The guy that was responsible for running the strategy for that now works for Tony Blair. Obviously, before that, he was an engagement manager at McKinsey, the global consulting firm, which is a training ground for a lot of these people. This is a revolving door. It's fascism. It's deeply, deeply inappropriate. And we're going to be talking about this a lot more over the next 12 months. This is the enemy that we're fighting against in the health system. Just a very quick final point. You would have noticed that the junior doctors are on strike again. We're going to start seeing this used as an excuse for excess deaths caused by COVID vaccines. I can feel it in my gut. I've already seen a few comments to that effect. You've got to keep your eyes open for that line of narrative coming out of central government. Essentially, if we aren't paying the doctors properly, they can't take care of people properly. They're going to go on strike, which means the excess deaths goes up, and it's got absolutely nothing to do with anything else. Yeah, they're trying to shift the blame and avoid accountability for what they've done. You're on mute.
Sorry, I do apologize. It seems to be a common problem today. Right. Okay, we'll start that again. If you like what the UK Column does, you'd like to support us, please check out community.ukcolumn.org. There are options for you to help us out there. You could pick up something at the UK Column shop, but please do share anything you find on the various platforms, especially from ukcolumn.org and ukcolumnextracts.co.uk. And make sure you scroll down the page if you're looking at ukcolumn.org, and you will find a spectacular article by Vanessa Beeley and Dr. Piers Robinson. There, it's in the comment section. Please go have a look at that. Now, yesterday at 1 p.m, we put out the interview that I did with Ben Pyle on climate change. That is on the front page of the UK Column website as well. If you haven't seen that yet, please do have a look, because it is, Ben is a very interesting guy with a lot of interesting things to say. So have a look at that. Now, on Sunday, as we mentioned, at 6 p.m. UK time, we're hosting, on behalf of the International Centre for 9/11 Justice, this symposium called Genocide and Empire. This is examining October the 7th and the geopolitics of the war in Palestine. It's going to be moderated by Dr. Piers Robinson. It'll have Professor Richard Falk, Professor Atif Kabersi, Vanessa Beeley, Dr. Aaron Wood, Kevin Ryan speaking. That is going to be an extremely interesting event. Do watch that live, 6 p.m. On Sunday if you can. Now, Debbie pointed me at this yesterday because there's an opportunity for everybody to sign up for the MHR Innovation Accelerator. This is all about nurturing innovation in academia. So the MHRA Innovation Accelerator provides innovators in academia access to leading scientific expertise and regulatory guidance. And there are still a few tickets left. It is free, I believe. So if you want to take part in that, ask a few questions maybe, that's on Eventbrite, and you can find it there. And finally, a reminder that Andrew Bridgen is hosting another debate on trends in excess deaths on the 16th of January at the House of Commons. That begins at 9:30 a.m. And he's asking for people to write to their MPs and encourage them to attend. So I think that would be a very appropriate thing to do. Okay, we'll move